This is higher homework, it's Unit 2 extension work, and we're still on question 12, and what we're doing here is we're going to complete the integration of E and F, so the more difficult questions that are put down here when we're integrating surds. Let's go ahead and do that. Right, whenever I'm faced with a question like this one here, what I'm looking to do is to try to split that root x that's on the bottom across the three parts that are there, to try and simplify things out a bit easier for myself. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to split that one. So I've got root x all over root x. I've got plus this x that's sitting there all over what's on the bottom, x, minus 2 all over root x. Okay, so from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to then try to either cancel down or divide out and try to solve this. If not, what I'll do is I'll change it to index form and see if I can work through from there. Right, so I know root x divided by root x, well that's going to give me just 1. So that's going to be a 1 that's going to be sitting there. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to change this part here on the bottom to index form. So I'll put that to the power of a half. That x there is to the power of 1, remember? I've then got minus 2, and that's all over x to the power of a half with respect to x. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get the x's away from the bottom, so I'm going to lift them up to the top line, and I'll do the indices work, because when I'm dividing by indices I'm going to be taking away the index on the bottom. So let's have a look at that. Still not integrated it yet. I've still got that 1 that's sitting there, and that's going to be plus x to the power of 1, and that'll be minus a power of a half, which is the half on the bottom, and that's going to be minus 2, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift that up to the top, and that's going to be minus a half that's there. And remember, I've already shown you how to take x to the power of a half to the top. I've shown you that in either A or B, so you can have a look back at these questions to see how to do that. Let's sort this wee bit out here, and then we'll probably be ready to integrate. I've got 1 plus, so I've got x to the power of 1 minus a half, so that'll just give me to the power of a half that's there. I've then got minus 2x to the minus a half. Right, so I'm now ready to integrate. So I've done quite a lot of work, so I would expect that in some of the more difficult questions we've got a fair bit of preparation to do. Always think about that before you do this type of question, how to prepare it before you integrate. Okay, let's go ahead and do the integration now. So 1 will go to x. What we have here is I've got plus x to the power of, I'm going to increase that by 1. So that's going to be a half plus 1 will take me to 3 over 2, or 1.5. Then what I've got here is I've got x to the power of minus a half, and I'm adding 1 onto that, so that should take me to a half, x to the power of a half. So I've got minus 2 here, and that's going to be x to the power of a half, and then I'm dividing by that new fraction, or that new power that's there, and that should be me set up there. Adding a constant of integration, don't have any limits that I'm going to be working with there, so I've got the constant to add in at the end there. Let's sort out these fractions. Okay, so I've got x here, plus, so that's going to be 2x to the power of 3 upon 2, all over 3. With this one here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that 2 to the top line, but it's going to be 2 times 2, okay? So that'll give me 4 on the top, so it'll be 4x to the power of a half. And I've just got 1 left on the bottom, so I'm not going to really show that, and that's going to be me probably to there. What I'll do just to finish this question off, I'll just change it into surd form, okay? So what I've got is I've got an x just sitting there, plus 2 all over 3, and that's going to be a square root, so I'm not going to put the 2 in, x to the power of 3. So remember, the top goes to the power, the bottom one there is a root. Next part here, I've got minus 4, and I've got x to the power of a half, so that's just the square root of x plus c. That's that question complete. Let's look at the marking for it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to give 1 mark here for splitting, when we split that fraction out, okay? I'd like to see 1 mark for that. I'd like to include everything that's there, but the main thing is that I want to see the fraction split out from there. What I'll then do is I'll be looking at getting this line here. So getting it into a form where we can then integrate everything. So there's 2 marks there so far. I'll then I'm going to go for a mark for this part in here. Next, I'll have a mark for integrating this one and sorting it out correctly as well, including the sign. And I'm going to give one other mark, and it's going to be for getting the X and getting the plus C in there as well. So that's where I'm going to give the final mark that's there. So what we've got there is we've got marks out of 1, 2, 3, 4, and the combination of these two here gives me marks out of 5. So that's the way I'm going to mark it in the homework. Okay, let's look at F. So this is the last one in question 12, and should be one of the kind of more difficult ones for us to try to work through. So let's have a look at that. So again, I'm going to be thinking about preparing it and how we prepare the work first of all. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to split the fraction like I did in question E. So let's split that fraction first. So what I've got is I've got an integral, I've got 3 over the cubed root of x sitting there. All over, I've got the cubed root of x squared. I've then got a subtraction part in there. I've got the square root of x cubed, and what I have is on the bottom the cubed root of x squared. Right, so I've sorted out in some way to try and get it from there. What I'm then going to do is I'm going to look at the indices. I'm going to change it all into indices now to try and sort things out. Still not integrated, and what I'll do is I'll say that on the top there is x to the power of 1 over 3, because remember there's a 1 sitting there. I'll then get on the bottom, and that's going to be x to the power of 2 over 3. 2 over 3. What I'll then do is I've got a subtraction in here, and that will be x to the power of 3 over 2. And this one here is x to the power of 2 over 3. Okay, so it looks as though I'm going to have some fraction work here to do to try and sort some things out. What I'm next going to do is I'm going to bring the, because I'm dividing things with indices, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the indices to the top, and I'm going to subtract indices for this. Still not integrated yet, so there's a fair bit of preparation that's getting done here. So I've got x to the power of 1/3, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 2/3 from that. I've then got this subtraction sign that's here. I've got x to the power of 3 over 2, and from that I'm going to take away 2 over 3. And I've still got to integrate all of that. Right, let's work the indices part out here. So I've got x to the power of 1/3 minus 2/3, so that should give me x to the power of minus 1/3. That will be there. So that's the first part sorted out. Over here, what I'll do is I'll do just trying to do some fraction work to try and sort this one out. So what I'd say is I would normally just kind of look at multiplying the two of these across the way. If I'm subtracting, 2 times 2 would give me 4, so I've got a minus 4 there. Multiply the two of these together, what that'll give me is 6. So that's kind of what my fraction is going to look like. It'll look a bit better when I sort it out. So that's going to be 9 minus 4 is going to be 5. So that's going to be x to the 5 over 6. Right, so we're now in a kind of state where we can then integrate. So that's me done quite a few lines of work in, and I've still not integrated the work yet. Here we go, we're just going to go and go forward, and we'll do the integration from here. So remember, we're adding 1 on all the time. So if I add 1 on here, what I think about is adding, if that's a 3 on the bottom, I'm going to add 3 to that top number, which will take me to 2, and I'm working in thirds. So that's going to be x to the power of 2 over 3. I'm then going to divide by the new power, which is dividing by 2 over 3. I'm then going to add 1 on to this fraction that's here. So I'm really adding 6 over 6, which is a fraction which equals 1. I'm just thinking about adding 6 onto 5, which takes me to 11, and I'm dealing with 6. So that should be x to the power of 11 over 6, and that's divided by 11 over 6. So some strange numbers coming into this question here. I'm going to add on c as being my constant of integration. I'm then going to just sort that part out at the bottom here. So I'm going to try and sort the fraction work out. So that's going to be 3x to the 2 over 3 all over 2. So that's going to be my first part sorted out. Subtracting, and remember that's going to be 6x to the 11 over 6, and that's all over 11. And I've got a plus c that's going to be sitting there as well. Okay, so that's probably where I'm going to get my marks, but if I wanted to change it into the surd form again, what I would have is I've got the 3 sitting there, I've got it all over 2, and I'm going to put this into root form. X is going to be inside the root. The power at the top goes in here, so that's squared, and that there is a cubed root that goes there. Subtracting, and what I've got is I've got a 6 and an 11. The x is going to be inside the root sign. On the bottom it's a 6, so I'm going to have a small 6 sitting there and a power of 11 up there. Some strange numbers, but that's the way this one has worked out. And I've got plus c, the constant of integration that's there. Let's have a look at the marking for this one here. And what I'll go for is, I'll go for 1 mark for, let's take this one here. Well, I'll go for this one here, okay? And what that is just splitting the fraction out and knowing to make sure that you divide both of these by the denominator that's there to try to start working things out. What we'll then give a mark for is getting it into integral form, so where we can start integrating. So I'll give that mark there. I'll give 1 mark for getting this final answer here, 1 mark for getting this final answer, and I'll give a mark for the plus c that's standing on its own. So again, this one here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 marks. Okay, so that's A, B, C, D, E and F complete. Gradually got a bit more difficult as we've gone through. If you can manage these ones here, well, they'll stand you in good stead for doing this type of work in your final exam. So I'll just wish you good luck on that one, and we'll go to question 13 next.